Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. It is our Halloween edition this year for October 2022, and with me as always is my good buddy Eddie Guevara, and special guest today, we have Michael Mezmer.
I like that, Joe.
Happy Halloween, guys. What's up? What's new?
Happy Halloween, brother.
All right, man. We got a lot to get to today. We got some cool stuff to get into this Halloween season. But right now, I want to turn it over to Michael and see what's new with him. So, Mike, what's up?
Hey, I am super busy, as you can imagine, during this season, being a magician, a hypnotist, and all of that. So right now I'm actually performing at the Rubadoo Oktoberfest out here in Southern California, doing my transgnosis comedy hypnosis shows and street hypnosis. And then I'm also working this coming weekend at the Tom's Farms Amusement Park right here in Southern California as well, doing my a Magic Nation magic show for the families for the holiday for Halloween. And then I'm in the midst of still editing my Ghost Transfer Hypnosis Among the Spirits book, which we've been working on this for almost a year and a half with the publishers, and we're getting closer as we speak. And other than that, just having a great week and really excited to be with you guys today.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. And what do you got planned for Halloween this year? Anything special or spooktacular?
I do a lot for Halloween. I'm going with a good friend to Knott's Halloween Haunt at Knott's Berry Farm on Thursday. And I will tell you that I have performed at the haunt several years. In fact, I was the first Freddy Krueger ever at Knott's Berry for their Halloween haunt. Many, many years back in the 80s, they produced a show at the park, and they were casting it, and they cast me as Fred Krueger. And I did it 2 years in a row, actually. The second year with some really cool stuntmen from Universal Studios, and I slayed them, and we had explosions. It was really awesome. And then I performed there with my hypnosis show several years. And so it's kind of a thing in my family. But I will tell you, a lot of people don't know, but Knott's was the first Halloween haunt in a park, amusement park ever. And now it's so popular now, but it was started way back in the 70s, late 70s, I believe. And it was started by an entertainment buyer of mine who used to be the entertainment director there at the park. And he got with Chuck Jones, the magician, Chuck Jones, the magic man in LA. He used to have a TV series. They put some illusions out in the park, and they got Seymour, Larry Vincent Seymour, to host movies in the John Wayne Theater, which is what it was called at that time there. And so he would be on stage and he would host them like you would see him on his Saturday night show here in LA, sort of like Svengoolie now, And so that was the first real haunt, and you didn't even have to pay to get in. It was just one of those things. There was no admission in those days. You paid for the ride separately, but that was the first Halloween haunt ever at any amusement park in the whole United States.
Wow, that's really cool. And so they do this every year then? They put on a nice big event there?
Yeah, used to be they had Elvira for many, many years in the main theater.
Oh, that would be cool.
And she was fantastic and singing and dancing and all that. She's since not doing that at this year anyway, but they have her souvenirs there still in the shops. But they have the Jim Henson Company do a puppet show that's sort of a Halloween scary puppet show in the theater now. But they have these mazes that are amazing. In fact, they have the Mezmer maze this year, which is all
nice.
It's really cool. It's all based around hypnosis, and there's creatures in it, but there's about I think there's 9 or 10 mazes, and they're really extensive and really amazing. And of course, as I say, they're the granddaddy of all the Halloween horror things at amusement parks, so they're really experienced. And it's just a great event. Like, we'll be going to the buffet before we go in, because if you go to the buffet, then you get to go in a half hour early, which is cool. And they have monsters that sit and eat with you at the buffet, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I wish we had some stuff like that around here where I'm at in Ohio. But I guess my new Halloween tradition, getting ready for Halloween, is Monster Bash, since they now have one in October. So that was kind of like my my big, spring towards the holiday. And then I kind of do my own stuff around here. But yeah, we don't really have too much, around here like that. Some of the amusement parks, they do like a horror-ween type theme. But, over the years, there's been so many fights and shootings at them that it's not worth going to. So it's kind of, you got to do your own little thing, which is cool, because I rather, sit around and, watch some old monster movies.
Yes.
And, read some of my old magazines. And, hopefully this year I have vacation day for Halloween, which I put in for it. Hopefully I get it because I plan on just all day watching old scary movies. And then our trick-or-treaters come from 5 to 7. So, I'll pass out candy. Hopefully get to see my nieces, in their costume. I think one's going as a sloth and one as a raccoon. And I was teasing them, trying to say, it's like, so your guys are going as a zombie sloth and a zombie raccoon?
Yes.
You're like, no, Uncle Joe, just a regular.
Oh,
They're
wow.
they're 5 and 6 years old. So, they're still in that, they want to be in those cute little costume phases. I said, man, hopefully in a few years we could get them into something spooky. So,
well, I rarely take work on Halloween because I deck my house out. In fact, I'm sitting here on the balcony of Chateau Mezmer right now, and I'm looking at my decorations on the balcony. I have skulls and I have things hanging and I have monsters, and they've been out for since October 1st. But I'll be enhancing that on Halloween with graveyards and all of that. And and then of course I dress up and I make people scream running into the streets. So I love to do that. And I love monster makeups and all that. So, but this year I'm going to go a little different because I've always wanted to do Michael Myers. And, I never do it because I'm not a big fan of masks as an adult. I love to really do appliances and cool makeups, and all that. But I always want to do Michael Myers. So I thought, with Halloween Ends coming out this time, I thought I'm going to do it this year. So I actually hand painted the mask a little more cool. And anyway, so that's what I'll be doing, Michael Myers. And I have crazy stuff going on here. But I will say that I performed at at a Halloween haunt at Castle Amusement Park in Riverside, California, which still goes through this weekend. So I have been doing amusement parks and haunts this year.
That's really cool. For Halloween, the only thing I really decorate is my outside. Is I have to put up my pumpkins and my blow molds. I don't really decorate inside because I have stuff up year round. That's pretty much all.
Me too.
Universal monster stuff and skulls, and so I don't really. The only time I really take that stuff down is during Christmas when I my house looks like it threw up a Christmas catalog. Because I love putting up Christmas stuff. So I take down 80% of my monster stuff, but I still do leave some stuff up. But yeah, year round it's up. So usually the outside is the only part that changes for me during Halloween.
Yeah, I've got a seance room in my parlor, which is the room that you go into when you enter the house. And in that room, I have a full-size mummy up year-round, a sarcophagus. I have magic apparatus, the old magic apparatus. I have my seance table. I have, skulls, all that. But during Christmas, what I do is I put a candy cane in the mummy's hands, and I put
nice
all that stuff. But yeah, I do have that up year-round. But I love decorating for Halloween. I just love it.
Now, you had mentioned the movie Halloween Ends. Did you have a chance to watch it yet?
I did go to it opening weekend. I've been a fan of Halloween for a long time. There's been hit and misses, as you know, Joe and Eddie, through the years. I have to say, if you're asking me my thinking on the film or my review, I think that it was very well written, good acting in it. The production values were good. Unfortunately, they veered off into a sub story with this guy named Corey, who then becomes sort of like Michael Myers, but not really. And I think using the last, 2 hours of Halloween, well, of course, it won't be the last. He'll be back. They make money. It's going to be more. But I just won't have Jamie Lee Curtis. But the thing is that by using that last finale of that trilogy to create a new person that ends up ultimately, spoiler here, turn off your ears if you don't want to hear it, ends up not surviving the movie. And then Michael at the end, it was a cheat, I think, because
I wanted to ask you, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. And it almost, to me, it seemed like there was one writer who did, the first hour and a half of the movie, and then they're like, well, we're going to get in this second writer, and don't read any of the first script, but here's a little bit of it, and then do it, because I was really confused. I thought they were going in a kind of a cool direction. Michael seemed like he was, and spoiler alert for anybody out there who hasn't seen it, turn it off now. But when Michael was in the sewer, it kind of seemed like he was dying a little bit, and that this kid was helping him bring bodies that was kind of rejuvenating him.
Yes.
And it was almost like this guy was like his protege. This was going to be the new Michael Myers, or his helper. And I thought that was an interesting direction they were going. And then it just the kid died, and then it was Michael Myers, and then a real quick ending, and that was it. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, and after all the years of Michael being indestructible, then all of a sudden Jamie Lee and her daughter can put him on a table and wipe him out instantly. It was a cheat. It wasn't it.
It was,
but again, I thought it was very well written, well acted. Production values were good. It was directed well, but it wasn't the right story.
It wasn't. It wasn't. They either should have went the protege route, where Michael dies, his kid takes over, he's the new boogeyman.
Yes.
Or the film should have had more Michael Myers in it. It just
one or the other. Yeah. And I didn't like the ending with the whole funeral procession with him. I guess they thought that would be sort of a thing for the fans, that they're putting importance on it. But I would have rather them use that time and all the rest of the film to make Michael have his final moment,
Right. Yeah. And everyone out there, because I'm a huge Halloween fan as well. And I've enjoyed majority of the films, but
most of them. Yeah.
They are going to keep doing Halloween films. It's just not going to have Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter, or Blumhouse.
Right.
None of them will be involved with it. So it will go a different direction. Probably it's like you said, it's a money maker. They're going to keep doing it like they've done. The Friday the 13th films, the Nightmare on Elm Street, and all those. It's a money maker. He's a cultural icon, of the horror industry. There's no way you can't stop it. But however, those three big shots of that franchise, they won't be involved anymore. So.
Well, and the thing is, there was so much confusion through the years with it, as because they had one route they went, and they went with Season of the Witch, then they went, from there. And then, of course, even when they jumped in the Rob Zombie years, the two that he did, which were visually interesting and everything, but very intensely bloody and all of that.
Right.
And then when they jumped back into retroing it back to the first film and sequeling it with these three, it's just been a very confusing trip. But, because Michael Myers is such a powerful personality and iconic, as you say, well, he holds it all together. Whatever movie he's in, it makes it Halloween regardless.
Right. And aside from the original Halloween film, I think number 3, the Season of the Witch, is my other favorite. I really like the direction that Carpenter was trying to go. And I kind of wish he would have done a little bit more of that, of these side Halloween stories.
Yes.
And I think that's, from reading some interviews, that's kind of the direction that he was looking at going, but they ended up bringing it back to Michael Myers. And I think they could have kind of done, both of those along the way.
They could have done both. Yeah.
But, it is what it is. And, hopefully.
But I would not tell people not to go to this film. I mean, like I say, it's well done. It's
right.
Just
it is. Yeah.
Don't expect it to be your all-time favorite, Halloween film.
Right, yeah, and I tell you what, the acting was very good in it.
Very good.
The actor who played Michael's protege, what was his name again?
I can't remember.
What was his name in the movie?
Corey,
yeah, that guy was a great actor. I tell you what, he was very convincing that, you just seen this evil growing in him, and it's kind of like him and Michael fed off of each other. And like I said, I like the direction they were trying to go, and then it just went totally different. But, we could harp on that all day, and, I don't want to spend too much time on that movie. And yeah, like I said, like you said, and people out there should definitely see it. It is a good movie.
Oh yeah.
And it's a staple in the franchise. It's the final one for, this legacy of Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis and with Blumhouse. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's a great movie, and stay tuned, because there will be more down the road. So with that being said, Eddie, what's new over at House of the Unusual?
What is not new in my area? A lot of action going on. A lot of action. People can hear my voice. Some of the dust in my storage facility and units and stuff have given me what they call the seasonal asthma. But anyway, that's because I like the Halloween deep voice. For the monsters.
There you go.
But what I was going to say, it's kind of funny when we're talking about all this stuff. I thought it was hilarious when I'm looking at the other day, and I think it was Instagram or TikTok. Some lady's trying to steal a 10-foot skeleton in her car. And apparently she sold it. She drives off with the skeleton, but she's trying to shove it in the back of the car, and it's not fitting, The video went viral. I thought that was funny. And then another thing that I found interesting is I spoke earlier with Mike, and I guess the best way to take this story off would be starting from Joe, his segment, and then Mike saying what's new and up with Ben Cooper. But just recently, about a month ago, I received an original Superman costume of Ben Cooper that I was able to get at a decent price on eBay. Now, I don't know where my original is. I think I lost it in the fire because obviously, I did have a fire in 95. But the new costume, it's basically the same one I had. The only thing is that I used to have the red mask that came with it. And this one, for some reason, has a white mask. The one that looked like Robin. I never understood why Superman had a Robin mask,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the way they did him.
Yeah, Ben Cooper was definitely. I remember so many of those costumes being young, and I always hated that rubber band in the back. It always aggravated my head. But those costumes were so cool, man. And to this day, if I see a Ben Cooper costume, at a flea market or a show or something, I have to pick it up. They're just fantastic. And I know you guys have grown up with those costumes as well, correct?
Oh yeah. Do you remember when they added the part where you can move the bottom of the mouth?
Oh yeah, with two little rubber band on each side. Yeah,
that was so awesome. I mean, that was like totally revolutionary because it was so cool. Because you had this static mask for when you're little, and then all of a sudden you could move your mouth and go ah rah rah and make noises.
Technology of the day.
And before the glow in the dark, they had glitter on them. Remember the glitter on the front and everything?
Yes, it's horrible. That was horrible, man.
Yeah.
I don't know you.
Yeah, but it was cool looking though.
It was. But you know what I was also going to say and bring up is that I've been working for the last 3 weeks. I've been putting up reviews. I call it Eddie's Deep Dives. And again, I apologize for last week's review because I was testing green screen and it didn't come out that great. But I had to put it on because I still did review the product. So content is more important than looks in that video. But I want to tell you guys out there that if you, another thing that, another of the new things that have come is they added us to Amazon Music and they added the podcast, I believe, to iRadio.
Wow.
It's in the process of being added there. So that's going to make it 9 platforms. So we could be heard everywhere. And that's very interesting because it's getting better as time goes on. But most importantly also is when, talking about Ben Cooper and stuff. And like I said, I didn't understand the reason they would have a red mask for the costume. And the only thing as a kid that I kind of didn't like was that it didn't have a pair of boxer shorts, like the, I would always say, why do they have the S and nothing else,
True.
And the funny thing, in the early 1950s, the original Ben Cooper one that was sold in the comics that now goes from between $50 to $500, that one had a pair of shorts, which is really interesting how they changed it when it went into the plastic. But one thing I'm going to tell you guys, and I know, Mike, you're going to exactly, I'm sure, Joe, you might have come across it, but I'm not too sure. But when you used to open those costumes, the smell of the plastic was phenomenal.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I love that smell. And when I do come across anything today that has that smell, I just open it up and just absorb it all the
way. That's how come you can't talk right now, right? You've been sniffing boxes.
Yeah, you've been sniffing Ben Coopers.
Yeah, probably. I'll tell you one thing, to be honest, though. I went into the storage and I was there probably about 7-8 hours. And I noticed my throat was kind of like scratchy,
Yeah.
And next day I have like an asthma thing, not an asthma attack, but I got asthma where it changed my voice,
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, that's part of they call go with the flow,
Oh yeah.
And, we're talking about Ben Cooper costumes out there. So I got a special treat for everybody out there is I am going to give you guys the history of Ben Cooper costumes, which Eddie and Mike, I'm sure you guys know, but there's a lot of our listeners out there that, are younger, might never have heard of Ben Cooper or
Yes.
not aware of the history. So I've got a article I wrote for Scary Monsters magazine number 110. This is back from 2018, and this is actually my first article for them. It's
Wow.
It's on the history of Ben Cooper, but it
I
is.
read that article, by the way.
Oh, good, great.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it's 4 years old, so there's a lot that's been going on with Ben Cooper in between. And Mike, you said you're pretty much up on what's going on new with Ben Cooper, correct?
Well, I not necessarily, but I'll tell you when you get done with your part, I'll bring in what I was going to say.
Okay, great. So let's get into the article here, and I'm going to read it verbatim, the same way the article was submitted to the editor, and of course, they changed a few words here and there, but I'm going to read the article here. There is some good information on Ben Cooper costumes, how they began and where they finished off.
Cool.
So, without further ado, we'll get into the article here. So, Halloween, the time of diabolical decorations, creepy costumes, and the prospect of gaining mounds of candy after trudging through the neighborhood, going door to door, spreading your warning, trick or treat. Sure, we love the jack-o'-lanterns carved to intimidate our young soul, the black cat stalking the yards, and even the occasional witch riding her broom laughing through the night. But nothing could scare us away from the one goal we had in mind, candy. And the only way we could achieve this objective was to put on a costume, go outside, and face the shrility of monsters and mayhem. Of course, we couldn't go door to door asking for the goodies in just our plain everyday clothes. We needed to look scary and cool. Our Halloween costume was an extension of ourselves, and we wanted to emulate these monsters, superheroes, and fantasy characters any way possible. For some, before the commercialization of costumes became commonplace, or before we could afford such luxuries, our imaginations had to lend a helping hand. Gauze could change us into a decrepit old mummy, awakened after 1,000 years of slumber, now looking for free candy in an unknown neighborhood. Black clothes and white makeup transformed us into a lurking skeleton. Green makeup and tattered clothes converted us from a living being into the terrible Frankenstein's monster. And a black trash bag or dark towel made us an unstoppable vampire just waiting for the sun to go down. Our imaginations ran wild at the thought of what we could become and how much candy could be gained by the end of the night. Halloween costumes were an important part of our childhood, especially around the Halloween season. But for most of us monster kids, it occurred year-round. Two men, Ben and Nathan Cooper, realized the importance of this cherished holiday and how much it meant to us kids, and how they can capitalize off the market offering more than just witches, skeletons, and ghost costumes. Born on the Lower East Side of New York in 1906, Ben Cooper spent his early years studying accounting and later songwriting before becoming interested in costume design. In 1927, Cooper started his costume company by creating theatrical apparel for the Cotton Club and the Ziegfeld Follies. 10 years later, in 1937, along with his brother, Nathan Nat Cooper, the two began to focus on children's costumes and created the Ben Cooper Incorporated Company. During the time, several small companies were putting out generic ghost, goblin, skeleton, and witch costumes, many of which didn't compete with the homemade costumes that kids were making with objects around their house. Ben and Nat quickly saw the need for well-crafted yet affordable costumes that took advantage of the pop culture icons of the time. In 1937, Ben Cooper Inc. acquired A.S. Fishbach Inc., who held the Walt Disney licenses of several characters. The two companies finally merged on December 8, 1942, with Ben Cooper Inc. cornering the Halloween costume market and quickly increasing their catalog of goodies. With the acquisition of their Disney license, the company further gathered iconic characters from radio and television, such as Zorro, Davy Crockett, and other popular television show characters of the time. Cooper was even able to obtain the license for a Superman costume from the radio show The Adventures of Superman. In order to stay ahead of the competition and keep parents, and most importantly, kids interested in the products, the company created lines such as Creature People, Harry Scary, and Glitter Glow. The Glitter Glow line in particular was produced in an attempt to make the costume more reflective at night with the use of glitter on the fabric. Other costumes caught the attention of kids through their array of vibrant colors, crazy designs, and popular character resemblance. With the increasing popularity of the designs, Ben Cooper costumes could be found anywhere from JCPenney's to Sears to your local nickel and dime stores. Throughout the 40s and 50s, the costumes were all the rage and sold for under $3, about $32.12 in today's market. With the most popular ones being the traditional Halloween characters such as ghosts and witches. Keeping the design simple yet effective with a silkscreen print on a thin piece of fabric kept the costume cost to the minimum. I think a majority of us can remember the thin piece of plastic and horizontal rubber band that made up the mask. Usually after 2 or 3 hours, the plastic would be digging into your skin while the moisture from our breath covered the inside plastic with thick condensation. And we always kept our fingers crossed that the rubber band didn't break or detach from the single staple on each side. But hey, no matter what the problem was or wasn't, we still loved these costumes and came back every year for more. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Ben Cooper began to capitalize on not only the popularity of monsters, but also the comic book and cartoon craze. The company quickly acquired the rights to Marvel and DC characters, as well as licenses to various Hanna-Barbera creations. When the Munsters television show hit the airwaves in 1964, Cooper began to produce character costumes to emulate the beloved family. However, one of the most popular costumes to come out during these 2 decades was the Spider-Man costume. In 1954, Cooper produced a novelty costume entitled Spider-Man for the Ben Cooper Spotlight Halloween catalog. The costume was a simple yet effective design of spider webs and a giant black spider on the chest. The mask expanded from the center with Spider-Man printed on the top. The 1959 version changed slightly and was called The Spider. When the Marvel Comics character became a hit in 1963, Ben Cooper produced a licensed character that became one of his most popular to date. Since Ben Cooper Inc. had the copyright on the name, Marvel had to add a hyphen, something agreed upon between the two companies' legal departments. Due to this agreement, the original box reads Spider-Man, all one word, while the costume is printed as Spider-Man, a win-win situation for both companies. Design and production usually began 8 to 10 months before October in order to ship the costumes in time for Halloween. As popular as the comic book characters and monsters were, Cooper needed to stay ahead of the trends and almost predict what would be popular. Thanks to his acute business and pop culture understanding, this proved to be no problem. After all, he had a pretty big name to live up to. In their October 25th, 1973 edition, the Village Voice newspaper referred to Ben Cooper as the high priest of this ancient celebration. Certainly no pressure was on for the company. When Star Wars was released on May 25th, 1977, the company took a chance at the costumes still being popular with kids in October. They were right. Not only did Star Wars become a huge hit in the costume industry, so did more shocking creatures such as the alien from Ridley Scott's 1979 science fiction horror film Alien. Ben Cooper Inc. was, during their time, considered one of the 3 main costume companies, along with H. Halpern Company, Helco, and Collegeville. Their increasing popularity throughout the decades was indomitable until the Tylenol scare in September 1982. When 7 people died after taking Tylenol that had been tampered with, parents throughout the nation were hesitant to let their kids go trick-or-treating the following month. Families worried that if pharmaceuticals could be poison, then so could candy intended for children. Not only did the candy industry suffer a devastating loss, so did the sales at Ben Cooper Inc., that of which was felt for several years. In an attempt to circumvent the slumping sales, Ben Cooper gathered 8 other Halloween costume, toy, makeup, and decoration manufacturing companies to form the Halloween Celebration Committee. Formed in 1982, the committee's aim was to make Halloween safe and fun again, not only for the kids, but for the parents as well. So in the 1983 booklet, 13 Great Ways to Celebrate Halloween, was published to garner more attention and awareness to the holiday. Ben Cooper Inc. recovered from the mass hysteria brought on by the 1982 scare and slowly but surely saw a continuous rise in sales. As more adults began to take interest in Halloween, the company began to produce a higher-end costumes made of cloth. However, this proved to be too expensive and complicated for the company that had, for decades, produced thin plastic costumes in a small cardboard box. After inefficiencies plagued the company in the late 80s, which subsequently led to several bankruptcies and other financial troubles, Ben Cooper Inc. was finally bought and dissolved in 1992 by the Ruby's Costume Company. Ruby's did, however, gain the hundreds of licenses acquired by Ben and Nat over the 5+ decades of business, but the Ben Cooper Inc. story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. In 2016, Nat Cooper's son, Ira, along with his partner John Miller and Ira's daughter Shifra, relaunched the company as Ben Cooper LLC. With Monsters, Star Wars, Disney, and Marvel still dominating the top of the pop culture list, it was only natural for the company to keep with the trend. Not only are they selling costumes, but also wall decor, t-shirts, patches, magnets, and other items aimed at the newcomer or the nostalgic collector. Artist and designer Micheline Pitt has even created a line of men's and women's shirts, novelty clothing, and costumes based off the classic artwork found on the Ben Cooper's costumes. So that's the article that originally appeared in Scary Monsters. And, like I said, it's been 4 years from there. So, Michael, what do you have to add to that on what's been going on with these Ben Cooper costumes?
Well, one of my favorite things to do every year is when I'm on tour, I travel to, this year I went to 7 states, 3 Canadian provinces with my shows. And one of my favorite things to do is as soon as they hit open, I love to go to the Spirit of Halloween stores. And Spirit of Halloween has stores, even though they're all sort of, the same merchandise, each one of them have uniquely different things that they may have in various regions and zones, or just in different stores down the street if there's a different Spirit of Halloween. Well, last night I was perusing a Spirit of Halloween store because I love to go, and then I love to go to the after Halloween sales where you get 20, 30, 50% off of items. And I was walking to the checkout, and because I had chosen something, actually a Universal Monsters mug, which was really amazing. It has all the monsters on it. It's a coffee mug. And they're only $10 and they're fantastic. But I love Universal Monsters, as I know you do, Joe and Eddie. But when I walked there, just walking in, they have a maze kind of a checkout thing so that, they have sales items like they do anywhere, but, last minute things you can buy as you go through the maze. And lo and behold, there was a display of Ben Cooper costumes.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, what it is, they're not made for kids, they're for adults. And it's composed of a mask and then a poncho type costume that you can wear. So it doesn't go over your whole body. It's not a complete shirt. It's like a poncho. And they have some that existed when we were kids, but some that I think they've just retro designed. But the ones they're offering this year, which are pretty amazing, they have Superman, they have Batman, and they're the same face that we remember, the same paint job, the same everything, but designed for a adult's face. They have the Flash, and then they also have some Star Wars. They have Yoda, which I don't know if that happened in reality. They have Darth Vader, and then they have a totally different, and they're in classic looking boxes too, by the way, with a cellophane front that displays the mask. And the artwork's pretty cool. And I think it's taken from the classic costumes. And then they also have a Gremlins, Gizmo, and they have a couple of different Ninja Turtles. I think it was Michelangelo and Leonardo. So anyway, I saw them and I was so thrilled. And they're only $9.99 a piece, by the way. which is a great price, right? But it's a poncho thing, so that literally any size you are, you can put the poncho on. Like the Superman had a removable cape that went with the poncho also. And maybe the Batman one did too. So anyway, super cool, super awesome. And if you want a little retro fun, if you're having a costume party at your house, have everybody wear Ben Cooper. It would be really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking at them online, and it kind of looks like now that the Ben Cooper, that was restarted by the Sun was, it looks like it was defunct around 2017, 2018. And Ruby's 2 LLC has now, looks like it has now taken it over. So they are producing these new costumes under the Ben Cooper line, along with some different ones. So that's really cool that they have them available for adults now, because it seems a lot of kids now, they want these real elaborate costumes, and it's more of us adults that are like, we want these, old Ben Cooper costumes where the rubber band digs into your head and you might get scraped up by the edges of the plastic.
Yes.
The good old times.
Oh yeah, I remember around your eyes it used to hurt because they would be sharp there unless you kind of worked on cutting them out a little bit or something. They would really embed in your eyes. But also, yeah, and the paint jobs on them, when I saw them up close, I was so impressed because they were, of course, better quality than what we had as kids in essence. And they have elastic now. I noticed when I was looking at it up close and kind of perusing, they have elastic now that goes around your head rather than a rubber band. So it's a little more comfortable. But yeah, and the cool thing is, like I say, it can fit any size because it's a poncho. So it's not a complete costume, but a fun thing to wear if you're just going to go to a costume party or something. You want to be retro.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I tell you, one of the things I remember from the Ben Cooper costumes, because we used to have them a lot as a child, and I remember specifically having a G.I. Joe one, and it was just a kind of a generic version of it, but it would always be the condensation that built up under the mask, and if it was a cool night, man, that made your face so cold.
It did.
Oh, and most of the time you would be wiping off the inside before you go to a new house. You say trick or treat, get your things, and it would be built up again, and you'd have to wipe it off, or you'd have it on the top of your head. And man, those were great.
Great,
Joe, good times.
Joe, when I was little, yes, they were. Joe, when I was little, I had one that was a Frankenstein ripoff called the Monster. Do you know if that was a Collegeville or if that was a Ben Cooper? Do you know?
I believe that there was on both of them. I want to say, I'd have to look at my collection, but I think I have a one of those generic monster ones under Ben Cooper.
Ben Cooper.
But I believe I saw one under Collegeville as well.
Yeah, mine was primarily black. The actual body of it, the costume itself, was primarily black or dark colored. And I have a photo of me in it. But in fact, it got printed in Scary Monsters in one of the My Monster Memories issues. But I always wondered if that was Collegeville or it was Ben Cooper. I've just always wondered that.
If I had to make a guess, I would say both companies would have made something similar to that. A generic, monster, especially to kind of circumvent the rights to anything. Sometimes they would say it's a generic monster, but you would kind of look at it and be like, well, that kind of looks like Frankenstein a little bit, or a zombie. But yeah, I'm looking now. I'm seeing that there's actually Ben Cooper did several that were just called the Monster. And I'm guessing Collegeville did.
So it could be either. I'll have to do more research on that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know, and it was always my. I think out of all the ones I had, that was one of my favorites. I just love that one.
Yeah, I'm looking now. It looks like Collegeville did do a few different ones that were just called, like a generic monster, and they did some that were, definitely rip-offs of some of the Universal monsters as well. But God, were they just cool costumes. Some of the color schemes were really, really crazy on them. You had all these neon, greens and reds and oranges. And I always thought that was really cool, man. Just the different schemes that they put on them.
Well, I had one too that was called I think it was a Firebird or something, and as well as with the mouth that moved, And I remember when my parents and I moved from one house to the other, and we were moving to a bigger house when I was 7. I wore it in the back of the truck because in those days we just throw everything in the back of the truck, and I could ride in the back of the truck. Nobody was worried about kids falling out or anything. Right. And I would make faces at people as I drove along the road with this Firebird mask.
What's sad is that you don't see really many. Well, at least in my area, and I hate I'll have to preface this by saying, my area, the demographic is a lot um, lower income, lower to middle income, so you don't see too many like costumes. Kids kind of still make do with what they have available to make costumes, and most of the time I'd like seeing that, what these kids are able to do with their imagination, and it kills me just looking throughout the years at how kids' imaginations have declined, with social media,
Yes.
video games, and everything else. It's not like we used to do when we were young. I remember, like I talked about in the article, using a trash bag in a towel, to be a vampire, or to make a costume. And we use stuff like that, whatever we found around the house. And I still like seeing, when kids use their imaginations to develop their own costume, whether it's through makeup or stuff just found around their house. I always find that that's cool too. I really don't like some of these newer costumes that are just real elaborate and all that.
I agree.
I'm
I
more of the
agree.
old school. I like the more, simple and traditional
Well,
stuff.
I've traditionally always, from the beginning, except for when I was very little, I've always done my own makeup and put together my own costumes. And that's why I said for this year, it's a little hard for me to be Michael Myers, because you literally to be right, you have to wear the mask, So but it's something I always want to do. But I agree with you. I've always, if you've seen my articles in Scary Monster, you've seen some of the makeup jobs I've done on myself, and they're pretty elaborate with, appliances and everything. So, but I started out young. I always liked to do vampires and all the traditional stuff. And with, I think it was Dick Pierce that was it Jack Pierce?
Jack Pierce.
Yeah, that had the book out, and I used to follow his magazine. The Famous Monsters was kind of that format with him showing you how to do all the makeups. So it was always, for me, that was the thing I did, and I always loved doing it Halloween. But like I say, I'm veering off this year a little bit. But anyway,
No, when you guys are talking about all the masks and stuff, the thing I remember mostly about Ben Cooper is, it's true. Originally, like the Superman costume, which obviously was my favorite. I had the Spider-Man. I also had the monster one. I think I had the monster, the black one you're talking about.
yeah,
But the thing I found it interesting is that the Superman first had the red mask that looked like Robin, and then they put a full face mask later on. By the time the full face mask had come out, I was actually past the Halloween trick or treating age.
right.
But what I was going to say, though, that I found interesting is the way I think most masks in modern days are made more like for collectibles reasons than to actually wear. Because I got the Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's like an $80 mask that's really, really well done.
Yes,
It's phenomenal. I would give it a star of 12. 1 to 10, I would go 12 on it because it's a phenomenal mask. But I
yes.
put it on the other day, just trying to joke around with my daughter. And when I put it on, first I couldn't see anything out of it. Okay. And then I couldn't get it off my head.
Oh,
Literally, I
wow.
was like, what the heck? And when I finally got it off of how tight it was, I was choking, man. I couldn't even breathe.
Oh, wow.
So I said, I think the masks today are not meant for actually people wearing them, because it's crazy. It's not okay. I understand the Ben Cooper and what was the other one back in the day, Joe? You had Ben Cooper and you had the other.
Collegeville.
No, the ones that used to make the bat mask. They made all
But
the masks.
if we're going to talk masks, Eddie, we have to talk, and Joe, we have to talk Don Post also.
Yeah, no. You had Don Post, you had Don Cooper, and then the mask were the latex cheap masks that were sold in Woolworth were made by I can't believe I forget the name of the company right now. It's insane.
But I remember those very well. Yeah.
Yeah, but
It'll come to you.
they made Joe. I don't know if you can look it up in the computer, but they made the Teen Wolf. They made all the masks that come out in Mail Order Mysteries, the book, and Joe Castillas owns almost all of them. Because you had Ben Cooper, but there was another company that started with an L. Oh my God, this is crazy. Can you find out there, Joe?
Yeah, I'll look while we're talking. I don't recall which one that is.
Well,
maybe some of our
while you're
listeners
looking for
can.
that, Joe, I was going to mention a lot of people out there may not realize that, we talked about Michael Myers a lot during this show, but I'm sure you guys absolutely know. But the mask that was originally Michael Myers was a Don Post mask. They were looking for an inexpensive mask, something they could acquire without having to pay too much rights to use for Michael Myers. And a lot of people don't know this, but we do, but a lot of people don't. And so I'll say it, that was the actual original Captain Kirk mask that Don Post had created during of the original Star Trek run back in those days, and he had acquired those rights, I think, after the series folded, and so it was very inexpensive. And so they chose the Captain Kirk mask. So a lot of people don't know, but every time we're looking at Michael Myers, we're looking at William Shatner. And probably that might be William Shatner's next to Star Trek, his most iconic role as Michael Myers.
Hey guys, we got about 15 minutes left here, and I want to shift away from masks real quick.
Okay.
And get into another staple of Halloween, and that is the scary movies.
Ooh.
We all have our scary movies that we like to watch year round, but it always seems like during the Halloween season, we really deep dive into those spooky movies, whether we watch them on TV or we pull out our dusty DVD that, we have that one movie that we watch, just during that time. So, I want to ask you guys, what do you guys really get into during Halloween? Do you have a special movie or TV series that you like to watch around this time? And Eddie, we'll start off with you. What's your go-to for this time?
I usually like watching the monsters and stuff like that. And, we talk too much about Halloween. One of my particular favorite ones, my favorite is the one when he makes the robot for the school project. But there's one there that there's some guy in Halloween in TV, and he wants to be like the great Sordak or Sorko, whatever the name was of the guy. And I actually bought a costume, not a custom, but one of those early 1970s makeup thing that you did. And it looked like that. I thought it was funny, but I like watching the monsters and, if I can, the Addams Family. And most of the stuff that I like really during Halloween is I start running around all the stores to get the after sales.
Yes.
And that's
Mike, what about you? What's your go-to movie or TV show during this time of year?
Well, there's several, but the ultimate that has to be watched every Halloween night by me and my family is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Awesome. Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, it's fantastic because you got the second time Lugosi ever became, and the final time he was ever officially Dracula on film. And you've got the incredible Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. And what was so amazing about that, Joe, as you know, is it was supposed to be a musical on Broadway. And actually, Abbott and Costello were going to do it as a musical on Broadway or a show on Broadway. And it ended up being a Universal film. And in the end, probably the film that they're still remembered best for amongst young people that don't know who Abbott and Costello is. But what a fantastic film. And all the actors, everyone in that film was incredible. The guy who played McDougal, everybody. But that is the ultimate Halloween movie because you got all the monsters, you got fun comedy, any age can watch it, and I just think it's incredible.
Yeah, and I just watched that at the Monster Bash a couple weeks ago again for I don't know the 3,000th time. I tell you what, it's so funny, and it's just a great movie. I love seeing Lugosi again as officially Dracula, and it's cool. It's a great movie, and it still holds up to this day too. The comedy and the action and everything. So, guys, if you're out there and you've never seen this movie, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, definitely check it out this Halloween. Put it on your top to-do list or to watch list because I'm telling you, you're going to get hooked. You're going to want to go back and watch all the Universal monster movies as well.
I think a lot of us got introduced to the monsters by that movie originally, and then we pursued looking at every single other movie, which are all fabulous too, of course.
Yeah, and my go-to one, and it's my favorite it's really my favorite movie of all time, and sometimes I'll watch it year round, but I really kind of wait to around this time, and that's Dracula from 1931.
Oh, I love it. That's my favorite too. That would have been my other choice. Yeah.
That's my absolute favorite. And so I really try to dig into it this Halloween. And this is the first year I'm reading Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I'm reading that, and I'm hopefully going to finish it before Halloween. And right when I finish it, I want to watch the movie. And I tell you what, I had a hard time when I first started reading the book because I was kind of comparing it to the 1931 movie, which was a huge no-no because they're totally different.
Yes.
And so I had to get that out of my mind a little bit and say, this book stands on its own and get into it. But I can't wait to finish it. It's a great book, and then get into the watching the 1931 film again.
Now, Joe, do you have? There's also two versions of it that have two different soundtracks in addition to the original soundtrack. Have you seen those?
Yes, I do. I have both of those, and I'm very partial to the original.
I am too, but for young audiences, I think because of the quiet, because as you know, they made that film so that because it was at the edge of the silent era, they wanted it to be able to play as a silent film or as a talkie. And so they're very quiet moments, which I think are very powerful. But I think sometimes with the younger groups of people, like my daughter, she loves the original, of course, because I brought her up on that. But she also likes the Philip Glass. And then there's that other one where they added that very odd soundtrack that was sort of a generic one that Sven Gulli has shown a couple times, which I actually videoed his show with that, so I would have a copy. But I think young people like to have that soundtrack in there if they're going to watch it. But again, for maximum impact, you want to see the original with the original soundtrack.
Now, have you had a chance to watch the colorized version?
No, that's new to me.
So if you go on, I think it should still be on YouTube. I believe I put in the forum site on House of the Unusual the links to it. Someone did a colorization into it, and they did it in, I think, 10 parts.
Wow!
But they colorized the film, and it's very cool to see it colorized, but it doesn't add anything to it. I think it kind of takes away from the movie. I enjoyed it a lot more in black and white, but it was really cool to see the colorization of it. It's worth seeing at least once if you're a fan of, horror movies, classic movies, and of Dracula. But
yeah, I think
for those of
us that have seen it many times, I'm going to check it out because it's sort of like the other big favorite of my daughter's and mine for Halloween is non-universal. We love House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, and on Tubi right now, they have both the regular and the colorized version of that film.
That's really cool, and I'm trying to find it online here if it's still on. I know, like I said, I have the links up at House of the Unusual.
Okay,
but there was a guy who did it. I believe it was like 10 or 12 parts who did the colorization.
Gotta watch it.
What really I found interesting is how legendary people like you forgot Topstone mask. That's what I was saying.
Topstone. Oh, there.
Oh, yeah.
The Topstones were the cheap ones that were sold in Woolworth and stuff like that.
And they had that monkey face, right? They had like that monkey face and all that stuff.
Yeah, they had that. And that, I think, is the one that did Topstone. I think is the one that created the Teen Wolf, the one that was sold by Honor House.
Yeah.
And that mask today does over $1,400 if you get one in good condition.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's probably the most expensive mask out there, other than if you guys remember that famous one from Famous Monsters, that's supposed to be the most grotesque mask ever made. What one was that called?
I don't know.
Oh my God! From Famous Monsters, it says the most grotesque. It has one eyeball popping out.
I remember that.
What's the name of that title, Joe? Because Famous Monsters.
Was that I Was a Teenage Frankenstein?
No.
That's what I was thinking of.
My memory's killing me. Famous Monsters always ran a small 1-inch ad for that face, and that face has become the most sought after mask in all. And if you go to Mail Order Mysteries and you turn to the, I think it was called the. He has a bulging eye. This is bad for listeners out there. Professionals forget the names of companies. You guys, well, go ahead, keep yapping. I'll find out.
I'm trying to think of what it is.
Me too.
I almost have like a picture of it, but yeah, I'd have to go back through some of my old Famous Monsters.
Yes, me too.
Maybe our listeners out there could let us know in the forum. That'll be a little quiz for the week for them. And
cool.
to let us know. And I tell you what, for our Crypt of Classics this week, since it is the Halloween season, we don't have a specific movie for this week, but we're going to keep it in the Universal Monster wheelhouse. So guys, it's Halloween. Revisit some of those old Universal Monster movies: Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Mummy, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and so on. Those are what started it all for many people, and what really started the monster boom, in the 30s and 40s. So guys, revisit those movies again if you haven't. Dust off your old DVD, revisit one of those if you haven't seen them in a while. You could find them, usually anywhere online, YouTube and all that. You could find them for free on any streaming service. A lot of them have, their Halloween movies up.
Yes.
And I've been noticing a lot of Universal Monster movies are on there.
Tubi has them.
Yeah, absolutely. Tubi is definitely free and has a ton of Universal Monster movies. Check them out, revisit them, and fall in love with them all over again, because it's like every time I watch them, I fall in love with monster movies more and more. I don't know what it is, but it's just a magical moment. And they're not long movies, hour and 10 minutes. Too short for me. Sometimes I wish there was a lot more of them to go around. But
yes,
yeah, definitely check them out and revisit them. So that's our Cryptic Classics for the week, and hopefully that'll start getting everybody out there more into the Halloween spirit, and to get more involved with these classic monster movies.
Universal films are like fine wine, although I never drink wine, but they're fine wine, so they get better with age.
Absolutely, and to think that they're like Dracula in 1931 is all almost 100 years old.
The show today without coming up with it, but it's supposed to be the most grotesque. It's the guy with the bulging eye coming out. I actually sell it in one, and I made a version of it. I don't know, it's not the Abomination. It's called the. Oh gosh, this is insane! I cannot remember. Famous.
You're gonna have to next show. You're gonna have to tell all of us, Eddie. Because
Eddie, is it the Shock Monster?
Shock Monster.
Yes, the Shock Monster. Yes, I got it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Shock Monster. I actually made a duplicate. I haven't been selling it in a while, but a few years ago, I came with a Shock Monster. It was basically printed onto this paper that when you put it in water, it would transform into a patch of wild flowers. I called it the Transforming Shock Monster. It was a phenomenal item. And there was another one that the Shock Monster itself, it was something that said, if you saw the picture of Dorian Gray and you thought that was crazy, imagine the transforming whatever shock. But the Shock Monster, the mask of the Shock Monster, I think, I don't know if it was Ray Castillas or one of the people, went into an eBay thing and they were selling a bunch of masks, and he came across one. He saw it in the background. He got it for like $300, the whole load of $400, and he had a perfect Shock Monster. It came with the white hair and I think the black hair.
Wow.
I'm not sure which of the two is. Infamous Monster tells you which of the two, not Famous Monsters, Mail Order Mysteries book tells you which of the two is the most sought after. But if you have one of those, and I had one that I think it's a big lump of rubber, but if you have one of those in mint condition, you can get excess of $2,000.
Jeez.
Well, that's like the 1954 Ben Cooper, the Spider-Man costume. That's the just has a spider webs and giant black spider on the chest. There's only one of those known to exist, possibly two, and that thing is so sought after. And if you find one, it's worth so much money. It's crazy how all these costumes and masks, at the time, we just used them, to go get some candy, and now today we could use them to go buy a house and a car.
Yes, I have a Zorro in the original box still.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is really funny that you're saying that, all you guys, because one thing I'm going to say, especially when you have old costumes like that, is that especially like something like when I said the Shock Monster, when you get a costume that survives 40, 50 years, that ring is a miracle because of how cheap it was done. But right now, and Cooper Superman costume from the 1950s can sell anywhere from $50 to $500 in the original box.
That's crazy how much that stuff costs, guys. And hey, we got to wrap it up here. We got less than a minute left. So I want to thank everybody out there in podcast land for joining us. Everybody all over the world. We're in so many different countries right now. It's crazy to think of. So we want to thank everybody that listens to us, that subscribes to us. If you haven't, please subscribe to our channel. Give us a good review out there. Check us out on YouTube under House of the Unusual. Subscribe to our channel out there. Eddie and Chuck are always putting out some great videos on there of magics and deep dives and a look into all these collectible items. So you don't want to miss any of those. Believe me, they're absolutely fantastic. Also, check us out at houseoftheunusual.com. We have a free forum site there and a link to our podcast. So you could sign up there, interact with some of us. And if you want to be a guest on the show, let us know, man. So Eddie, Mike, thank you guys for joining us. This was a great conversation, and happy Halloween, guys. Stay safe, and hopefully you guys get a lot of candy. Good night.
God bless, guys. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.